You want to stay here all night? Don't you play with me, you know I got a lot of hits.
Welcome to Nightchild Reviews. Prince's live legacy is quite simply beyond mere human words. The soul-shaking, electric vibrancy of seeing a Prince concert is an experience that lives with people forever. Combine this with his unprecedented work rate and sheer output, and you are actually presented with a rather splendidly beautiful problem. Out of this luxury of abundant tours, what do you include in a top 10 of Prince tours? As problems go, it is sublimely a joyous one. So as we briefly take a look at some of Prince's greatest tours, please forgive me the inevitable subjectivity of this list. Leaving off so many truly great tours pains me immensely. And fear not, we're going to look at each one in closer detail as our journey continues. Indeed, we've already started that journey on the channel with previous videos. However, for now, the atmosphere is building, the crowd noise is rising, the lights are dimming, and Prince is about to blow the roof off once again. We are here. Where are you? Prince, it is crucial to note, didn't just appear on Earth as a truly stellar performer. He honed his craft, worked on his showmanship, reviewed practically every performance he ever gave, keenly seeking for ways to improve his live offering. Prince, even when experiencing setbacks, simply by sheer force of will, continued to up his remarkable game. In the beginning, this wasn't easy. There were concerns in the very early days from Warner Brothers about his very first live performances, and it was felt that Prince needed more polishing. Prince responded valiantly. After his initiation into live performing on his 1979 Prince tour, and the tensions and rivalry experienced as a support act for Rick James on the 1980 Fire It Up tour, Prince was steadily developing his own style, and the 1980 Dirty Mind tour saw Prince get down and dirty, stripped to his briefs, embracing the carnality and raw sexuality of the accompanying album. It was, however, arguably with the Controversy tour that some iconic Prince elements began to emerge in his live shows. The big ballads of tracks like Do Me Baby, the showmanship and crowd interaction, and the beginnings of those classic funk workouts like Let's Work. The stage was then now set for Prince to grab an unsuspecting world's attention with his most audacious tour by far to date, the Triple Threat Tour of 1999. With Prince's landmark double album 1999 about to burst him into the public consciousness, MTV and the musical zeitgeist, Prince put together a tour like no other. He arranged for his girl group creation Vanity 6 to kick off proceedings with a 20 to 40 minute set, followed by The Time, who showcased their increasingly well-received funk jams, which often rivaled Prince's main shows. All this followed by a remarkable concert by Prince, who now had his previous 5 albums plus B-sides to plunder for an array of gems. The venues themselves tell the story of Prince's rise into popularity as he began to fill larger and larger auditoriums and arenas. There was a buzz about these concerts, an electricity that this was an icon in the making. Indeed, writer Kim Herron of the Detroit Press, quoted in Pierre Nilsson's Dance Music Sex Romance, was clear in her praise. Prince is a star and is probably destined to become a superstar. I knew he had plenty of stage presence, an original sound laced with provocative sexual imagery, and lots to say, although a good deal of it is muddled. But after seeing his opening show at Masonic Auditorium, I'm convinced he's a full-fledged phenomena. The tour that was quite simply a juggernaut that thrust Prince firmly into music royalty. It is hard to even be able to imagine the scale of the utter phenomenon that Purple Rain was. 98 shows, the formal introduction of the revolution, a stretched out luxurious Purple Rain performance that lasted for close to 20 minutes, and estimates of a gross income of over $30 million. From the blistering opening salvo of the existential Let's Go Crazy, through to Prince's extended conversations with God at the piano, the upbeat jauntiness of Take Me With You, the shocking sexuality of Darling Nikki, which Tipper Gore found so obscene, through the panting vulnerability of the Beautiful Ones, the guttural growling guitar of Computer Blue, the isolated loneliness and raw pain of When Doves Cry, to the celebratory uprising of Baby I'm a Star and the messianic I Would Die For You. The show propels itself into the final aching, transcendental spiritual calling of Purple Rain, the undeniable anthem of hope, unity, mournful beauty and exulting, wailing, pleading guitar work. These shows were an epiphany for Prince in many ways. He had unquestionably reached the top. He had achieved his dreams. The question now was simple. What would he do next? For me, the Parade Tour is a very different experience to virtually any other Prince live performance. Here, Prince presented us with a strange dichotomy of a stripped-down version of himself, but with an expanded stage lineup. Prince had arguably, despite personal issues, appeared on stage happier than ever. He darted around, dressed often in bright yellow, smiling, laughing, and pulling faces at the crowd. He barely touched his guitar, preferring instead to focus on his vocal performance and keyboard jams, with some drum work thrown in for good measure. The show had a real revue-style feel to it, with Jerome, Wally and Greg as a trio of dancers acting as a foil for Prince, and the light, fluttering sax and flute of Eric Leeds alongside Alanta Bliss. Wendy, Lisa, Matt and Bobby driving the grooves, with Brown Mark and Miko adding to the guitar work. Prince's fiancée at the time, Susanna Melvoin, also joined them on stage, adding backing vocals. Sadly, the tensions were rising, and it was clear that this would now become the end of the revolution, and a major turning point in Prince's life and career. Here I must explain why I'm only briefly mentioning the Sign of the Times tour, which in many ways is arguably one of Prince's defining live tours. The recent release of the legendary New Year's Eve concert and the always essential movie of Sign of the Times have firmly cemented Prince's genius in the minds of people lucky enough to have viewed these performances. Sadly, the tour was essentially abandoned after 34 concerts over 2 months, focusing exclusively on Europe, as Prince was keen to move on to further recording. The tour never reached the UK due to poor weather, and never toured the US. Many people claim this was one of the biggest mistakes Prince ever made, as the album was one which was being welcomed by critics as a pure masterpiece, an assessment that has truly stood the test of time. Luckily, we have the concert movie and the New Year's Eve concert, but one wonders just what might have been. The Lovesexy Tour was one which as a teenager I simply wore out the video watching. It is without doubt a master at his absolute peak. Coming hot on the heels of the abandoned Black Album project and subsequent spiritual rebirth of the ethereal Lovesexy, it is a concert that is one of two halves. The dark, brooding, often sexual hedonism of Erotic City, Jack You Off and Head, through the nihilism of Bob George and Supercalifragisexy, and the epiphany-drenched conversion of the second half, filled with the pure joy of The Cross, I Wish You Heaven, and Kiss. There is then the simply wondrous piano medley where Prince's heavenly falsetto lifts songs like When Two Are in Love and Condition of the Heart into the heavens. This all leads to a final denouement which often included a powerhouse of hits, a collection which included When Doves Cry, Purple Rain and 1999. An encore of Alphabet Street would often appear. Prince was the assured tent master of the circus of fun, spirituality, sexuality, joy, longing and redemption. Few, if anyone, can ever hope to top this tour. Despite the huge attendances, due to the expensive inclusion of moving stage parts, a Thunderbird replica, basketball hoops and in the round stage, the tour only began to make money as it moved to its final Japanese leg. Diamonds and Pearls was a very public time for Prince and his newly formed New Power Generation band. After the extravagance of the Lovesexy Tour, Prince has slimmed down his stage design for the aptly named Nude Tour. But now he was ramping things up again. Prince was proving to Warner Brothers that a $100 million contract was a reasonable bet, as the album broke the 5 million sales barrier with multiple videos and hits such as Cream, Get Off and Diamonds and Pearls itself. Prince now realised that he required a floating bed that rose above the audience so he could perform with his new dancing duo Diamond and Pearl. The stage offering also changed dramatically with a much heavier focus on rap, with the Game Boys, comprised of Tony M, Kirky J and Damon Dixon. The tour also saw the introduction of Maite. Musically, many would argue that the New Power Generation band was one of his most talented. Michael B on drums was joined by Tommy Barbarella on keyboards, Levi on guitar, Sonny T on bass and Rosie Gaines on keyboards and vocals. Prince was entering a new height of commercial success and popularity. He was embraced by the mainstream, and the concerts were a huge success over Asia, Australia and Europe. Once again, Prince did not tour the US. However, this was about to change. After the Diamonds and Pearls tour, Prince commenced his Act 1 and Act 2 tours, reconnecting himself with his home base of America. However, special mention also has to be made of the ultimate live experience, which saw Prince experiencing arguably the most tumultuous and turbulent times of his career. He was at this point fighting with Warner Brothers, demanding that the Gold Experience be released, and he had written the word slave on his face. He embarked on the 32-date Ultimate Live Experience tour, stating that he would not play any Prince songs, and only ones from his new identity. This stance, however, shifted as the tour progressed, with tracks such as She's Always in My Hair, Do Me Baby and Sexy MF reappearing. The shows themselves were incredibly stripped down, and as the tour progressed, often expensive stage parts, such as the rather elaborate Endorphin setup, were downsized. Prince was largely front and centre stage, accompanied only by Maite and his reduced NPG band. In 2002, Prince embarked on a very different tour. One Night Alone largely promoted the One Night Alone album alongside the Rainbow Children release, which embraced Prince's conversion to becoming a Jehovah's Witness. This tour was unusual in many ways. Firstly, the entire vibe was very relaxed, with Prince talking to the audience about his religious beliefs, views on the music industry and about matters of race. Prince discussed his issues with Abraham Lincoln and given family names, and also joked around with his audience in sound checks and gave members of his NPG music club special access, including being able to ask him questions. It was also very different in that it was a very jazz-infused tour over the 64 shows, and also that Prince hugely stripped back any pyrotechnics, stage designs, and even performed in a relatively understated, well, for Prince, pinstriped suit. For those who were lucky enough to see this tour, it became a firm fan favourite, and an edited version of the concert was released on DVD, which in itself is quite notable, as few of Prince's tours have official video releases. 2004 saw the return to the mainstream for Prince after a few years of internet-only or overlooked releases. Musicology, quite frankly, was an absolute monster. 1.47 million tickets, grossing $87.4 million and 90 shows. It became the most profitable tour of 2004 and put Prince top of the live performance pile. Boosted by his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and his Grammy performance, Prince even managed to use the tour to challenge the music industry by including a copy of his Musicology CD with every purchase, pushing its numbers into the ceiling. Real music by real musicians was the rallying cry, as Prince railed against the pre-recorded lip-syncing acts of the time and highlighted his remarkably honed band, which now included John Blackwell, Renato Neto, Mike Scott, Rhonda Smith, Candy Dolfer, Mike Phillips, Greg Boyer and Chance Howard, alongside the legend that is Maceo Parker. The shows were stunning, a combination of musicology tracks, classic Prince hits and a mesmerising acoustic guitar section in which Prince flexed through blues jams, iconic tracks and the brilliant cocksure bravado of the song Prince and the Band. Real music has never sounded better. Personally, one of my absolute favourite tours, the Earth Tour, was a tour that did not move, which I suppose makes it a residency, rather like the later 31-21 stint in Las Vegas. Here, Prince undertook 21 nights in London at the iconic Millennium Dome O2 Arena over the course of 2 months. The stage was set, and what a stage it was. The new symbol-shaped performance area, which nestles in the centre of the arena, was resplendent with moving lights and mood-filled colouring. Over 351,000 people managed to experience the tour, with many more heading to the O2's Indigo nightclub, where Prince would often appear for an after-show and welcome guests such as Amy Winehouse. And all this for the bargain price of $31.21, set in line with Prince's upcoming album. There are a number of nights in London that many people will never forget, whether it was the sight of Prince roaring through tracks such as You Got the Look and Black Sweat, accompanied by the Dancing Twins, the sampler section where Prince sped through snippets of his huge back catalogue, the wailing, life-changing transcendence of the guitar solo from the end of the track Shh, the upbeat disco of Chelsea Rogers, or the sheer surprise on the first night of opening with Purple Rain. These shows had it all and are rightfully held in the very highest esteem by all who saw them.
Thank you, Manchester.
After touring the world again with his Welcome To tours, Prince decided to break from the huge clamour of massive arena shows to start a new band, Third Eye Girl, comprising of drummer Hannah Welton, bassist Eden Nielsen and guitarist Donna Grantis, sometimes aided by keyboardist and producer Joshua Welton. After an initial tour across North America and Europe, the band decided to undertake their hit and run tour, often only announcing their intention to play a venue literally hours before the concert began. Hitting the UK, North America and continental Europe, the shows were loud. The usual set list of hits were replaced with tracks foraged from Prince's back catalogue, which suited a guitar-based rock group. Tracks such as the blazing Bambi, Dreamer, Endorphin Machine and Chaos on Disorder, alongside the new Donna Prince creation of Plectrum Electrum and the Billy Cobham classic Stratus. The shows, quite simply, blew the socks and anything else left unsecured off the general public and critics alike. To add a cherry on top, tickets were sometimes sold for as little as £10. Prince also took the chance to reimagine a few classics, such as a reloaded Let's Go Crazy and a slowed down version of both I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man and a stunning reworking of Something in the Water Does Not Compute. London never fully recovered from these stellar shows. Sadly, Prince's final tour before his transcendence, and just when we thought after the new tour and One Night Alone and the taut Third Eye Girl that Prince could not strip down his shows even more, he surprised us all by announcing his next tour would be Prince, and only Prince, sat at a piano with a microphone. Achingly poignant, Prince opened up to his audience about his father and his life, and then sadly when Denise Matthews, also known as Vanity, passed away, he also talked about their relationship. Prince's voice was simply incredible here. The utter elegance and capability of his piano playing was awakening. Prince often included tracks that were rarely played on the piano, such as The Max, Black Sweat, Baby I'm a Star, Girl, and All Day, All Night. Prince had given us so much, and he continued to reach new heights until the very last tour. My fervent hope is that the estate release as many of these incredible tours as possible. There is so much to experience and enjoy from this incredible artist, who I truly believe to be the world's greatest live performer. As always, thank you deeply for listening.